I remember the exact moment everything changed. We were standing in Carla's backyard at her annual summer cookout. The grill was smoking, music played from a Bluetooth speaker, and everyone was laughing with drinks in their hands. My son Noah, 15 and quiet as always, stood beside me holding a paper plate stacked with potato salad. He'd been nervous all afternoon, but when Carla's son Henry mentioned his acceptance to Cornell, Noah saw an opening. He cleared his throat and said softly, "I'm going to be valedictorian." Carla stopped mid-bite of her burger. She looked at Noah, then at me, then back at Noah. And she laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a real gut-deep laugh that made other guests turn and stare. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, wiping her mouth with a napkin. "Henry's been accepted to Cornell. Let's be realistic here." The words hung in the air like smoke. I felt my stomach drop. But what hurt more than her mockery was the sound that followed. My boyfriend Thomas, Carla's brother, let out a nervous laugh too. He didn't mean it cruelly. I could see the embarrassment in his eyes, the social panic. But Noah heard it. His jaw tightened. His fingers went white around that paper plate. And in that moment, I knew something had broken between them. Something that might never fully heal. I wanted to say something to defend my son, but the words caught in my throat. The barbecue continued around us like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The car ride home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Noah sat in the back seat staring out the window. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just breathed slowly like he was trying to hold something inside. Thomas drove with both hands tight on the wheel, glancing at the rearview mirror every few seconds. I could see the guilt creeping into his face. When we pulled into the driveway, Noah grabbed his backpack and walked straight inside without a word. Thomas turned off the engine but didn't move. "I messed up," he said quietly. I didn't answer right away. I was too angry, too hurt for my son. "He needed you to defend him," I finally said. Thomas nodded. "I know." That night I went to Noah's room. He was sitting at his desk with his laptop open, staring at a blank document. "You okay?" I asked. He didn't look at me. "You should have defended me, Mom." The words cut deeper than anything Carla had said. "'Cause he was right. I should have. I should have stood up the second she laughed. I should have walked us out of that backyard with our dignity intact. But I froze. And my silence hurt him just as much as Thomas's nervous laugh. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He finally turned to face me. His eyes were red but dry. "I'm going to prove them wrong," he said. "Every single one of them." And I believed him. Over the next few days, I started noticing things about Carla I'd ignored before. Little comments she made about my small-town mindset, or how Noah was sweet, but not exactly Ivy League material. She had a way of phrasing insults like compliments, so you didn't realize you'd been cut until later. Thomas noticed too. I could see it in the way he went quiet during her visits, the way he stopped laughing at her jokes. One evening we sat on my porch after she'd left and he said, "She's not always like this, is she?" I looked at him. "She's always been like this. You just didn't want to see it." He rubbed his face with both hands. "I thought she was just confident." "There's a difference between confidence and cruelty," I said. He nodded slowly. "I see that now." But seeing it and doing something about it were two different things. Carla had a way of pulling people back in, making them doubt their own instincts. She was charming, successful, and always knew the right thing to say when it mattered. Thomas was caught between loyalty to his sister and loyalty to us. And I wasn't sure which side would win. Noah changed after that barbecue. He started waking up at 5 in the morning to study. He'd sit at the kitchen table with his textbooks and a mug of tea, working through practice problems while I made breakfast. He stopped watching TV. He stopped playing video games. Every spare moment was spent reading, writing, or preparing for tests. One morning I found a note taped above his desk. It said, "Prove them wrong." I stood in his doorway and stared at it. My heart ached. I was proud of his determination, but I hated that it came from humiliation. He shouldn't have had to work this hard just to prove he was worthy of respect. But that's the thing about being underestimated. It either crushes you or it fuels you. And Noah had chosen fire. Thomas noticed the change too. He'd come over for dinner and watch Noah silently, guilt written all over his face. One night, after Noah went to bed, Thomas said, "I broke something in him, didn't I?" I shook my head. "No. You lit something in him. But you need to make it right." He nodded. "I will. But words without action don't mean much." And Noah was watching. A few weeks later, Carla started pushing Thomas to sell his late wife's house. She called it finally moving forward, and suggested he move in with her properly. "You're holding on to the past," she told him over dinner one night. "It's not healthy." Thomas looked uncomfortable. "That house has memories," he said. She waved her hand dismissively. "Memories don't pay bills. You could sell it, invest the money, and we could travel. Live a real life." I sat across from them, watching the conversation unfold. This wasn't about the house. It was about control. Carla wanted Thomas under her roof, under her influence, where she could shape every decision he made. Thomas must have sensed it too because he changed the subject quickly. But the seed was planted. Later that night he told me he felt trapped. "She's always had strong opinions," he said. "But lately, it feels like she's deciding everything for me." He nodded. "That's because she is." He looked at me with tired eyes. "I don't know how to stand up to her without blowing up the whole family." "Sometimes," I said carefully, "the family needs to blow up." Things got worse when Carla attended Noah's parent-teacher meeting. I didn't invite her. Thomas brought her along without asking me first. The moment she walked into that conference room with her designer handbag and fake smile, I knew it was a mistake. The teachers praised Noah's progress. They mentioned his essays, his leadership in debate club, his near-perfect GPA. Carla listened with a tight smile, nodding politely. Then she spoke. "He's very bright," she said sweetly. "But realistically, shouldn't he be thinking about trade schools? Not everyone is cut out for university." The room went silent. One of the teachers, Mrs. Alvarez, blinked in confusion. "Noah is one of the top students in his class," she said carefully. "He's absolutely university material." Carla shrugged. "I just think it's important to manage expectations." I felt my face burn with anger. Thomas stared at the table. And Noah, sitting beside me, clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles went white. After the meeting I pulled Thomas aside. "Don't ever bring her around my son again," I said. He nodded. "I'm sorry. I thought she'd be supportive." "She's never been supportive," I snapped. "She's been tearing him down since day one. And you keep letting her." That night, I found Noah in his room crying into his pillow. I held him and promised him that no one, not Carla, not anyone, would define his future. He deserved better. And I was going to make sure he got it. A few days later, Noah found an old letter from his late grandmother tucked inside a book. She'd passed away when he was young, but she'd written him letters for milestones she knew she wouldn't see. This one was labeled, "For when someone doubts you." Inside it read, "People will laugh at your dreams because they're afraid of their own. Don't let their fear become your ceiling. Prove them wrong with grace, not anger. That's real strength." Noah read it 3 times, then taped it beside the other note on his wall. That night at dinner he looked calmer, more focused. "I'm going to make her proud," he said quietly. I didn't have to ask who he meant. "You already do," I said. Thomas, sitting across from us, looked like he wanted to say something. But he stayed silent. Again. A week later, I overheard Carla on the phone. I'd gone to Thomas's house to drop off some mail, and she was in the kitchen, talking loudly. "They're good people," she said with a laugh. "Just stuck in their small lives. Thomas could do so much better, but he's too sentimental." My stomach turned. I stood outside the door, frozen, listening. "And the kid," she continued. Sweet, but let's be honest. He's not going anywhere. He'll end up at community college like the rest of them. I didn't confront her. I turned around, walked back to my car, and drove home in silence. That night, I told Thomas what I'd heard. He went pale. She said that. He nodded. Word for word. He sat down heavily on the couch. I don't know who she is anymore. You do, I said quietly. You just didn't want to see it. He looked at me with broken eyes. What do I do? You choose, I said. Her or us. Because we're not doing this anymore. He nodded slowly. But choosing isn't easy when family is involved. And I wasn't sure he had the strength to walk away. A few days later, Thomas got offered a promotion at work. Assistant principal. It was a big step, something he'd worked toward for years. But when he told Carla, she frowned. That's going to interfere with our plans, she said. What plans? He asked. She waved her hand. Traveling. Spending time together. You'll be too busy. He stared at her. This is my career, Carla. She smiled tightly. I'm just saying, think carefully about what's really important. I wasn't there for that conversation, but Thomas told me about it later. He looked exhausted. She wants me to turn it down, he said. Are you going to? Yes. He shook his head. No. For the first time in years, I'm going to do what's right for me. Smiled. Good. It was a small step. But it was a step. A few weeks later, Noah won a statewide academic competition. It was a huge deal. Schools from across the region competed, and Noah's essay on resilience and identity took first place. The local news even ran a short segment on it. I was so proud I cried. Thomas came over with flowers and congratulated Noah with a genuine smile. But Carla, he sent a text. Congrats. Henry would have won if he'd entered. That was it. No phone call. No visit. Just a backhanded compliment wrapped in cruelty. Thomas saw the text and his face darkened. I'm done, he said quietly. I looked at him. Done with what? With trying to please her. With letting her control my life. I'm done. That night, he called Carla and told her he needed space. She cried. She apologized. She promised to do better. But Thomas didn't budge. I need to figure out who I am without you in my ear, he said. She hung up on him. And for the first time in years he smiled. A few weeks later, Carla invited us to a celebration dinner for Henry's college admission. Thomas hesitated, but I convinced him to go. Let's show her we're not afraid, I said. The dinner was at an expensive restaurant downtown. Carla had invited family and friends, turning it into a showcase for Henry. Every toast, every speech was about him. Noah sat quietly beside me, barely eating. When dessert came, Carla raised her glass. To Henry, she said. The smartest, most driven young man I know. Everyone clapped. Then she looked at Noah. And who knows, she added with a smile. Maybe Noah will surprise us all and make valedictorian. She said it like a joke. Like it was impossible. Thomas stood up. We're done here, he said calmly. Carla blinked. What? We're leaving, he said. Come on, Noah. We walked out in silence. In the parking lot, Noah looked at Thomas with wide eyes. You stood up for me, he said. Thomas nodded. I should have done it months ago. The next day, Thomas officially ended things with Carla. She came to his house, crying and apologizing, but when he refused to change his mind, she lashed out. You're throwing away family for them, she shouted. Yes, he said simply. She called him ungrateful. She accused him of being manipulated. But Thomas stayed calm. I'm choosing people who respect me, he said. And you're not one of them. She left in tears. And Thomas finally breathed. The weeks that followed were quiet but heavy. Thomas doubted himself constantly. He wondered if he'd overreacted, if he'd destroyed his family over nothing. But Noah reassured him. You did the right thing, Dad, he said one night. Thomas looked at him, surprised. Noah had never called him that before. I'm not your dad, Thomas said softly. Noah smiled. You've been more of a father to me than anyone else. So yeah, you are. Thomas broke down. And in that moment something beautiful was rebuilt. Meanwhile, rumors started spreading. Carla told people Thomas had anger issues, and that he'd ended their relationship over nothing. The whispers followed him at work, at the grocery store, at family events. But Thomas didn't defend himself. He trusted that the truth would come out eventually. And Noah? He kept working, kept studying, kept proving everyone wrong. A few months later, the school announced the top candidates for valedictorian. Noah was in the top 2. The other candidate, a girl named Sophia who'd been ranked first since freshman year. When the news broke, Carla's circle mocked it. Pity recognition, one of her friends said. But Thomas just smiled. Wait, he said. Just wait. Principal McAllister called Thomas into his office one afternoon. I wanted to tell you privately, he said. Noah's essays and leadership scores have set new school records. He's not just in the running. He's leading. Thomas teared up. Are you serious? The principal nodded. He's remarkable. You should be very proud. Thomas called me immediately. We celebrated that night with takeout and sparkling cider. Noah smiled but stayed humble. It's not over yet, he said. But we knew. We knew he'd done it. Months passed. Then one day, Carla showed up at a school event. She had a new boyfriend, a real estate developer, and she paraded him around like a trophy. She approached Thomas with a fake smile. I wanted to make peace, she said. Thomas greeted her politely. I appreciate that. She introduced her boyfriend. Thomas shook his hand. Then he walked away smiling. He didn't need her approval anymore. And that felt like freedom. Finally the day came. Noah was officially declared valedictorian. The local news picked it up. Henry came in third. Carla's smug confidence cracked. She didn't call. She didn't text. She just went silent. And that silence felt like victory. Graduation day arrived. The gymnasium was packed. Carla sat in the audience beside Henry, pretending to be proud. Thomas and I sat a few rows back, hearts pounding. Noah stepped to the podium in his cap and gown. He looked calm, confident. And when he opened his mouth to speak, the room went silent. Noah began his speech with gratitude. He thanked his teachers, his classmates, his family. Then he paused. Some people laughed when I said I'd be valedictorian, he said. The room shifted. But laughter can be the best fuel. Because every time someone doubted me, I worked harder. He looked toward Carla. So to those who mocked me, thank you. You made me stronger. Gasps rippled through the crowd. He continued. Real strength doesn't shout. Endures. And I learned that from someone who finally chose to stand up for what's right. He looked at Thomas. Dad, this is for you. The gym erupted in applause. Thomas broke down. I held his hand as tears streamed down both our faces. Noah had done it. And he'd done it with grace. After the ceremony, Carla approached awkwardly. Congratulations, she muttered. Other parents avoided her, whispering. Thomas nodded. Thank you for motivating him. Then he walked away. Poetic justice without a single insult. Weeks later, Noah left for college with a full scholarship. Thomas and I helped him pack. As we loaded the last box into the car, Noah hugged us both. Thank you for believing in me, he said. Always, I whispered. That night, Thomas and I sat on the porch. I'm proud of him, he said. Me too, I replied. And I'm proud of you. He smiled. We did good. Yeah, I said. We did. A few months later, Thomas found the letter from Noah's grandmother again. The final line read, Don't ever let someone else's laughter define your worth. He smiled. Closure. Is. Justice. Life moved forward. Noah thrived at college. Thomas took the promotion. And me. I finally felt like we'd won. Not because we proved Carla wrong, but because we proved ourselves right. We were enough. We always had been. and no one could take that away from us. When you witness someone being mocked, diminished, or humiliated, your silence isn't neutrality. It's agreement. The people we love need to know we're on their side, especially when it's uncomfortable to say so. Thomas learned this the hard way. His regret was immediate, but the damage was done. Noah's trust had to be rebuilt slowly, through consistent action rather than apologies. If you find yourself in Thomas's position, whether as a parent, partner, or friend, understand that defending someone might cost you social comfort, but failing to defend them costs something far more valuable: their trust in you. Don't wait until you're in the car or alone at home. Don't rationalize that it wasn't that bad or they didn't mean it. Stand up immediately. Your silence today becomes someone else's wound tomorrow. Carla represents a type of person many of us encounter: the charming manipulator. She doesn't yell or throw tantrums. Instead, she delivers cruelty wrapped in concern, insults disguised as advice. Let's be realistic. I just think it's important to manage expectations. These phrases sound reasonable on the surface, but they're designed to diminish. They reveal themselves gradually, through small comments, backhanded compliments, and subtle power plays. The protagonist noticed these patterns: Carla's digs about small-town mindset, her pressure on Thomas to sell his house, her patronizing tone at the parent-teacher meeting. These weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a consistent pattern of control. Learning to recognize this pattern is essential. Ask yourself, does this person lift others up or tear them down? Do they celebrate others' victories or find ways to diminish them? Do they phrase criticism as concern? Do they make you doubt your own judgment? Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't gaslight yourself into accepting behavior that damages your peace or your loved one's confidence. Noah could have responded to humiliation in many ways. He could have given up, believing Carla was right. He could have become bitter and angry, lashing out at everyone around him. Instead, he chose a third path. He used the pain as fuel. Every early morning, every extra hour of study, every moment of discipline was driven by a refusal to let others define his potential. This is the alchemy of resilience, transforming rejection into determination. However, this lesson comes with an important caveat. Noah's response was healthy because he had support. His mother believed in him. Eventually, Thomas stood up for him. He wasn't carrying this burden alone. If you're the person being doubted, find your people. The ones who see your worth even when others don't. Surround yourself with voices that build rather than break. And if you're supporting someone who's been dismissed, don't just tell them they're capable. Show up. Defend them. Believe in them loudly enough that they can hear it over the noise of doubt. The key is balance. Use criticism as motivation, but don't let your entire identity become about proving others wrong. Noah eventually reached a point where he wasn't working for Carla's approval. He was working for his grandmother's memory, for his mother's sacrifice, for his own future. That's when the work became sustainable. That's when it became truly his. Thomas's journey represents one of the hardest challenges in relationships: choosing between family loyalty and personal integrity. Carla was his sister. Walking away from her meant disrupting family dynamics, facing judgment, and dealing with guilt. Family doesn't give anyone the right to be cruel. Blood relation doesn't excuse manipulation, mockery, or control. The bonds that matter most aren't the ones formed by genetics, but by mutual respect, genuine care, and consistent support. When Thomas finally said, "I'm done," it wasn't an act of anger. It was an act of self-preservation and integrity. He chose the family he was building over the family that was tearing him down. He chose Noah's well-being over Carla's approval. And in doing so, he modeled something crucial. If you're in a situation where family or long-term relationships have become toxic, know this: walking away doesn't make you disloyal. Staying in situations that damage your mental health, your peace, or your loved ones doesn't make you strong. It makes you complicit in your own suffering. Set boundaries. Enforce them. And understand that people who truly love you will respect your limits. Those who don't weren't actually on your side to begin with. One of the most mature elements of this story is Thomas's decision not to defend himself against Carla's rumors. When she spread lies about his anger issues, he didn't retaliate. He didn't launch a counter-campaign. He simply lived his truth and trusted that time would reveal it. In our age of social media and instant responses, there's enormous pressure to defend yourself immediately, to correct every false narrative, to win every argument. But sometimes the most powerful response is patience. Living with integrity means your actions eventually speak louder than anyone's lies. Thomas continued being a good father figure to Noah. He took his promotion. He showed up consistently. And eventually people saw who he really was, not through his words but through his choices. This doesn't mean you should never defend yourself. If someone's lies are causing tangible harm, address them. But recognize the difference between defending your truth and exhausting yourself trying to control others' opinions. Some battles aren't worth fighting because the people spreading lies aren't worth your energy. The right people will see your character. The wrong people won't matter. Perhaps the most beautiful lesson comes at the end. Noah's speech wasn't vindictive. He didn't humiliate Carla. He didn't list her cruelties or mock her publicly. Instead, he thanked her for the motivation and moved forward with grace. Revenge feels satisfying in the moment, but grace creates lasting peace. Noah could have torn Carla apart in that speech. He had every right, but he chose a higher path. He acknowledged the pain she caused while refusing to perpetuate the cycle of cruelty. When you prove your doubters wrong, you'll be tempted to rub it in their faces. You'll want them to feel the humiliation they made you feel. But here's the truth. The best revenge is success paired with character. When you win with grace, you not only achieve your goal, you maintain your integrity. Thomas demonstrated this too. When Carla approached after graduation, he didn't gloat. He simply said, "Thank you for motivating him," and walked away. No insults, no drama, just calm acknowledgement and closure. This is what real strength looks like. Not loud vengeance, but quiet dignity. Not burning bridges, but simply walking away from them. Not proving you're better than your critics, but proving you're better than the version of yourself they tried to create. This story reminds us that being underestimated isn't the end. It's often the beginning. The doubters, the mockers, the people who laugh at your dreams aren't obstacles. They're tests of your conviction. They reveal who truly supports you and who only pretends to when it's convenient. The real victory isn't changing the minds of those who doubted you. It's becoming so secure in your own worth that their opinions no longer define you. It's building a life so fulfilling that proving them wrong becomes an afterthought rather than an obsession. Stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. Walk away from toxic people, even when it's family. Turn your pain into purpose. But don't carry it alone. Play the long game with truth. And when you win, do it with grace. Because at the end of the day, the best response to "you can't" will always be "watch me."